There are so many Batcaves in the Arkham series, almost every single game released has one. So today I'm going to talk about each one of them and at the end give my ranking to see how the worst and best compare. Starting off with Arkham Asylum, obviously this is the first Batcave shown to us in the series, and it not only serves to be a cool looking location, but also to reveal more about Rocksteady's version of Batman. He prepares for any and every situation.
A Batcave on Arkham Island?
I built it years ago. It's best to plan ahead for situations like this.
Even if it means building an entire base of operations inside of a supposedly heavily guarded island without anyone seemingly knowing about it.
It's me, remember?
The first time the game has you go there is because Batman wants to investigate what Dr. Young is doing with Bane's venom. As you make it to Deadman's Point on the island, Batman shows off a little bit, and as you enter the cave, there's this high-tech door that opens sesames only for Batman. It clearly uses the same technology as the doors in the penitentiary. Once you get past the door, you get a nice little shower from this waterfall. When I was younger, I used to think this was something Batman installed in order to disinfect himself, but since this feature isn't there for the other entrance, it most likely is just a waterfall. It is in fact a waterfall, and I guess Batman either forgot to or just didn't get to it, but this entrance has no stairs, so you have to glide down into the main area. I don't mind that though, cause gliding is pretty cool. The centerpiece of this cave, as expected, is the Batcomputer, which has like 100 different screens. There's a bunch of these air ducts or event things that extend all the way up to the top of the cave and most likely all the way outside. Not exactly sure what these contribute to. All the other electronics on both sides of the Batcomputer have plastic thrown on top of them, so either he just recently moved this stuff in or he's getting ready to take it out of this dingy cave. Once Batman uses the Batcomputer to give you your next objective. Sorry for this horrifying suit glitch by the way. This is where you get the legendary overpowered Batclaw that he has to stare at for an hour. This thing was never the same once they nerfed it in Arkham Knight. You have to use it to completely waste whatever was in these boxes so you could move on to the sewers. Up here we can see an extra Batwing. This is probably under repair at this point, or it could just be one that's out of commission and he just has it hanging up here for display, which wouldn't be unusual for someone like Batman, as we'll see in one of the other Arkham Batcaves. Later on in the game, you have to come back here after defeating Croc in order to deal with the Titan formula, which is what Dr. Young was working on. You come in from the same way you left, and again, another one of these high-tech doors leads you straight back to the Batcomputer. The first time you're here, it feels like a safe place to be, away from all the delinquents and mental patients. But this time, you're not safe at all because Poison Ivy's drugged up plants start crashing through the cave, forcing Batman to jump around dodging them. They block off all the entrances, forcing you to create a way out with the overpowered Batclaw ×3. They also destroy a bunch of stuff in the cave, including the Batcomputer, and worst of all, the hung up Batwing is lost to the void forever. Unless this whole time I was wrong, and that's the exact same Batwing that was called in to drop off the line launcher. Alright, moving on to Arkham City. Unfortunately, this game, although the greatest in the series, doesn't continue the idea of Batman having a backup HQ to fall back on when he needs it. Though it doesn't really matter that much because he's prepared in other ways, since he can just have the Batwing fly into Arkham City, past all that artillery, and drop off whatever he needs. Regardless, this game does have a Batcave, but it doesn't appear in the main story and is a DLC challenge map instead. It has you go against Tiger Guards using Invisible Predator gameplay. Just like what I said about the Wayne Manor Armory in my video ranking every combat map in the series, having Tiger Guards be the enemies in the Batcave does add to the story, or is at least consistent with the story of the game, because Hugo Strange knowing who Batman really is could very well lead to him sending Tiger Guards to find him. When you start the map, the Batcomputer quickly tells you there's intruders and all that kind of stuff. Right behind Batman is this sewer looking entrance into the cave, which doesn't actually lead anywhere, and right below is this nice waterfall which is typical of Batcaves. Behind it is another barred area that leads to an armored door. This is probably an exit used by the Batmobile. If you look straight up, it looks like this challenge map takes place during the daytime, which is of course rarely seen in this series, so that's pretty cool. The main feature of this Batcave is the middle section with this elevated walkway that leads to all the other areas and cutouts of the cave. Smack dab in the middle is the classic Arkham Bat logo. All the way on the other side of the cave are these glass display cases, which I'm assuming would house bat suits, but for now they're empty. Although right down here in in this section is a weird Batman statue, which is pretty interesting. Throughout this version of the Batcave, as mentioned, are these cutout areas with various machines and computers. Then going to the right part of the back of the cave, we can see the Batwing in like a standby mode. It's just here hovering the entire time. Also in this area, we can find the Bat2 pod, which gets dropped in at the start of the game, and one of those smaller pods which get deployed with gadgets inside them. In the middle of this lower level section, there's the classic Arkham Asylum Batmobile. Though there could be minor differences between this one and the one in the previous game, I really didn't notice any, so I'm just gonna assume it's the same one. Really the same model as opposed to the exact one, since, you know, that one drowned. And here is the main attraction with the classic T-Rex and Batcomputer. Sadly, there's no penny in here, at least not a giant one. Maybe one of the Tiger Guards dropped some pocket change somewhere. This Batcomputer also has 100 screens, but this time I think Batman went a little overboard with the height of some of these monitors. Bro's neck would be broken after an hour of YouTube. Okay, here's one you weren't expecting. Arkham City Lockdown. Yes, this game does have a Batcave, but you can't explore it because it's only the backdrop to the main menu of the game. Some of the Batcomputer screens are different things you can tap on, and to the right is the Bat2 chamber. There's really not much at all to say about this one, so now onto possibly the fan favorite rendition of the Batcave in the series, the one in Arkham Origins. This one by far is the biggest, most expansive, and detailed in the entire franchise. Our introduction to it is literally the introduction to the entire game, so we once again have a Batcave that is actually a part of the story, like in Asylum and unlike City. In what is definitely a top 5 cutscene in any superhero game, we get a quick sneak peek into what the cave is like before we're allowed to roam around it after we deal with Killer Croc. Here's a rundown of the cave. Once we're done with Black Gate for the time being, Batman flies straight through, you guessed it, a waterfall to enter the cave and parks the biggest Batwing in these games on this platform. And heading straight to the right, we have the expected Batcomputer, again with a billion screens. This is definitely way more detailed than the previous ones. We have all these computer towers down here and all kinds of machines and other electronics placed way down in the back. And once you turn around, there's a whole section here with cases and detective stuff Batman's working on. Surprisingly, Gotham's only the second most dangerous city. And before we venture to the lower levels, I have to mention the terrible Bat2 chamber, which doesn't even let you change your suit unless you beat the game. I mean, why even let us interact with it if we can't really even use it? It's just there to taunt us the whole time we're down here. And of course, mentioned earlier, we have the Batwing platform right here. Under that is this catwalk leading to this infirmary with all types of medical equipment and drugs. Going up from there, we have a lab area with a bunch of math on a chalkboard and a workbench with chemical experiments going on. This is where we come back later on in the story to pick up the glue grenade, sorry. And there's even a cool prototype of the line launcher. Finally over here, there's a bunch of welding gear. Going this way leads you to a broken down elevator that doesn't work. So we'll just continue on to the training area. Straight away, the thing that catches your attention the most is this prototype Batmobile. And then the actual training part of this area has a cool feature that lets you enter the challenge map mode. This game does have a combat map set in the Batcave, which I covered in my ranking video. I'll just quickly say that it transforms a part of the Batcave to be way more polished than what's actually in the story, and it has the Batwing flying behind you the whole time. A cool little detail are these tracks in this area with a minecart on one of them. Someone in the Wayne family was really into Minecraft. Guess you could say this was something Bruce and Alfred were working on when they started building in the cave, but it looks way too old for something that would have more recently happened within the events of the game. The training area in the main story has this work in progress build right next to the Batmobile that I didn't even notice until I looked at the cave in Cold Heart. The DLC has you enter it through a secret passageway that leads to this platform which can move up and down, and it takes you straight down to the training area, and in the DLC, the Batmobile isn't here anymore. There's also some damage left over from Bane's attack in the main story. Arkham Knight is the most unique game in this video because there aren't actually any Batcaves. And no, I'm not going to count the challenge map because that's just the exact same one from Arkham City but with updated graphics. So I'm going to have to stretch things a bit and we'll have 3 different locations to look at. Although there's no Batcave, this game does continue the idea that Arkham Asylum had of Batman having a backup HQ wherever he needs one. In the case of Arkham Knight, he needs a few across the city. First, we're going to take a look at the least of these 3, and that being Bruce Wayne's office in Wayne Tower. When you enter the office, it's literally just an office with Lucius hanging out. But obviously this is Batman we're dealing with, so of course there's secrets in here. In front of all these books he doesn't read, there's this Adam West statue that activates the hidden Bat2 pods under the floor. Once they're up, you can see what's inside of both of them. This one just has some batarangs and other gadgets, and the other one has a post Arkham City suit displayed in it. You can also go go through this door, but there's nothing noteworthy here. Next is probably the first thing that came to your mind when you thought of Arkham Knight being in this video, the Watchtower. Getting inside is pretty cool as you open up this panel and slide right down in the center of this really normal looking room, besides the fact it's in a clock tower. But obviously this is Batman we're dealing with, so besides all this crap laying around from Oracle, there's yet another Adam West statue that activates the secret purpose of this tower. All the shelves go away and a bunch of screens pop up. All kinds of graphs and data surround you, including this. Best of all is this Easter egg that shows you what Oracle was up to before she turned into Professor X. Last and maybe even greatest in this game is Panessa Studios. Not the entire building, but the part with the quarantine cells. Getting in here is probably the least Batman-y way of getting into a secret base, as you just take an elevator. Once you're down there, you walk up to a very odd but cool looking contraption, I guess. Of course, these are all the cells that house the now dead Joker infected patients, along with Harley Quinn. In the center of this is a Bat computer. Not the Bat computer, but one of them at least. This one isn't as ADHD looking as some of the other ones though. And smack dab in the middle of the entire floor is Red Hood's symbol. Guess he had enough spray paint and time to make this. In this corner over here, there's another Batsuit pod, and this little table here is where you can pick up the freeze grenade early on in the story. And I can't forget the rocket ship. Next is the first VR game of this video, Arkham VR. You activate the secret entrance, do all the suiting up and gadget stuff, and then you can finally get to the actual cave. The first thing you see, funnily enough, is a waterfall. Going further down, if you look left, there is the classic T-Rex, and this time on the right side we have the actual giant penny. You can watch a video of Joker torturing Jason and then go to different areas of the cave with the grapnel gun. The Bat computer area has this cool thing that lets you view a bunch of character trophies. This version of Tim Drake has actual hair. Once you're done with the computer area and get ready to track down Nightwing, you can go to the Bat garage, which lets you pick a vehicle. Once you pick one, you can move it and rotate it around, and then once you're ready, you can go ahead and launch it to the start of the rest of the game. Okay, this is the final Batcave we'll see today, the one in Arkham Shadow. This one is most similar to the one in Asylum in that it was secretly set up underneath a super prison, and even though this game's Batman wasn't written by anyone at Rocksteady, it does continue what they started with him having backup HQs where they really come in handy. Getting to it is pretty cool also. You have to escape your Blackgate cell as Matches Malone and traverse through the scaffolding to get to this hatch. It's basically a vent that leads to this cave, since every prison in this series is built on top of caves. There's more jumping and climbing until you reach this flight of steps that takes you to the main part of the cave. You get the Batsuit, then you're allowed to explore this part as much as you want. The first thing that stands out, besides the sketchy cages hanging up, is the medieval architecture. Guessing this was some sort of church or temple belonging to whatever group these statues represent. Turning left takes you to one of the exits back to the prison, and the same thing for the right side. The Bat computer area is of course the main part here, and surprisingly there aren't that many screens in this game. There's one main one in the center, and the two on the sides activate if you get close to them. One of them lets you do challenges and training, and the other one lets you go back to old Gotham. Alright, that's all I'm gonna say for that one, so let's get to ranking all 7 Batcaves we looked at today. In last place, I would put Lockdowns, as we don't really get to see much from it, and it might as well have just been a static image, which it mostly was. I like the idea of it being the backdrop to the main menu, but that's really all it has going for it. Next, I would say the one we just looked at, Arkham Shadow. I do think this one has the coolest architecture, but in terms of technology, it's pretty bare bones. There isn't really much to see in this one. Now with number 5, I'm being really generous because it technically shouldn't even be in this video. I'm sure you can guess that I'm talking about Arkham Knight. As you know, there isn't an actual original Batcave here, so I'll just count the 3 locations as one. I'll give the first spot to Arkham VR. This one, unlike the previous, is an actual Batcave and is way more detailed with Easter eggs thrown in compared to Shadow. If I actually had the game myself, I would be able to look around as much as I want, and maybe it could have gotten a higher spot. Number 3 takes it back to the beginning of the series with Arkham Asylum. As stated earlier, this one being a backup HQ secretly built is a great idea Rocksteady came up with, and this one definitely has one of the coolest entrances. The second spot will go to Arkham City. This was Rocksteady's first attempt at making a Wayne Manor Batcave in the series, and they did a great job. This one feels packed with things to see, and although I would have loved to see some sort of base within Arkham City's walls, I can't be mad at what they did give us. And of course, that leaves us with Arkham Origins. It only made sense to put this one at number 1. None of the other caves can even compare to this one in terms of size and the amount of detail. They really went above and beyond with this version of the cave, even though it looks completely different than the one in Arkham City, despite it being in the same location. But nothing ever really stays the same in this series anyway, so that's whatever. Let me know what you thought of my ranking for the caves, and even your own thoughts on these locations. I got some pretty dope stuff stuff on the way, so cape stun the subscribe button. I know that was cringe. Bye.